of the only thing we offer here. Almost all the sushi is going to be classically found in Edo Bay, but we basically take those techniques from those fish and apply them to what we get from there and what we get from here. But most of it has to do with a little bit of curing. I have to say I didn't really like most hikari-mono or shiny fish, things like mackerel, when I first started making sushi. Now it's probably one of my favorite fish. This is masaba, chub mackerel. Really fatty fish, also very traditional like Edomae style piece. This is sanma, pike mackerel. This one's coming from Hokkaido right now. Tends to be a little bit brinier and sweeter. Really short season as well. This one is kohara, gizzard shad, very briny. This one, however, is going to have a little bit different preparation on the sujime. It's going to be a little bit heavier pickled. Sujime is the process of curing through salt and vinegar. Originally, all of the curing and preservation of the fish was more or less created because it was at a time when there wasn't refrigeration, so these things had to last longer outside at room temperature. Basically, what you're trying to do with the salt is pull impure flavors out, pull water out of the fish, concentrate fat content. The vinegar process kind of helps to pull salt back out and kind of seal up the fish from oxidization. And vinegar and salt also have a bunch of sanitary properties as well, which is part of the reason why it's being used for the cure process. The sanma is now began to sweat. It hasn't really absorbed much salt, but you can definitely see the moisture coming off of it. All I'm going to do is rinse it in vinegar, and then I'll pat it dry and put it on the zaru and just let it air dry for a little bit. Most of these mackerel-like fishes tend to be a stronger flavored fish, and the sujime process mellows out the strongness of the flavor of the fish and kind of highlights the sweetness and fat content of the fish. Now the salt's been rinsed off and it's going to get marinated in the vinegar portion of the sujime for about 30 minutes. We're using those same classic old Tokyo sushi techniques in order to boost umami within the fish and bring out the natural flavors that the fish already has and take out some of the flavors that are less desirable. Most of the preparations vary based on the fish, but still the same ingredients, just maybe different amounts or ratios and different timing. Tamago is probably the first piece of sushi I had as a kid. I've always loved it. I want to say I try it everywhere I go. So when I was able to make tamago, that was a feat in itself. I am half Japanese myself, but I don't have a ton of Japanese culture in my family. My original plan was to become an architect. I was going to school for it. When seeking out a job originally, it seemed like something that I could connect to a culture that I don't know very well. It was a part-time job and I kind of fell in love with it and eventually dropped out of school and took it on full-time. I still do enjoy design and woodworking and doing stuff with my hands, which definitely correlates to sushi a lot. One of my first jobs ever as an apprentice, just kind of got thrown to the wolves, and first thing he had me do was make tamago. I made more of a scrambled egg, and that's kind of how that went for me. We've always done a folded omelet, so I really kind of geeked out on the recipe a little bit, tried to push the envelope of how much dashi I could get into that omelet with that and still be able to make it. And I think we came up with a pretty good idea or recipe for it. And it's still one of my favorite pieces actually to have at a sushi restaurant. For me, the most difficult part is like heat control. The whole flipping thing is what most people kind of focus on as being like the difficult part or difficult technique of making tamago. A tamago pan is not. It's a stainless steel pan with copper on the outside. It doesn't have any non-stick qualities to it, so it has to be well seasoned. Temperatures have to be absolutely perfect in order for it to not stick. For the first few pours, there's going to be about 3 layers, and then every continuous pour after that is only 2 layers. So there's roughly 20 layers in there. Dungeness crab is a local variety of crab native to the Northwest. It goes as far south as maybe like Santa Barbara. Dungeness crab is a local variety of crab native to the Northwest. It goes as far south as maybe like Santa Barbara. It's basically the crab that I grew up living here in Oregon, and my family was an avid scuba diving family, so we would go out pretty much every weekend and have crab right on the beach. It's got some sweetness to it. It also has a tiny little bit of bitterness to it, and if you're getting it in the good time of the season, it does have a lot of fat content as well, which lends to the sweetness. We like to utilize all of it. We'll take off the unedibles, obviously the shell and the lungs and a few other parts of that crab, but for the most part we save all the fat, all the innards, the body meat's taken apart pretty intricately as well as the claw meat. And we incorporate the kani miso, or the innards and the fat, into the body meat. Claw meat we kind of serve separate because it is a better looking piece than the other one, but it has its different qualities as far as texture and flavor as well. This is buri, yellowtail, and what we're going to do today is get it ready for the aging process. It's been cleaned, the scales have been cut off, and basically we're going to salt it and let it sweat, and kind of like the sanma, pull out any like impure flavors or water, things that are going to help it kind of go bad in the aging process. We typically can take it roughly a week. We've done it up to about 14 days. What we're doing is creating more umami within the fish, also textural changes as well. We do this kind of on a daily basis until the fish decides it doesn't have much more moisture to give. And so that's going to concentrate the flavor of the fish. Fat content's going to be a little bit higher than it was due to the loss of water weight as well. Then it just sits until it sweats, and then we're going to, once it releases a good amount of moisture, typically it'll take about 15 to 20 minutes. We'll rinse it, pat it really extra dry, wrap it in paper and plastic, and then kind of repeat the process on a daily basis. There's a lot of fish that have decent livers, but not at the size or fat content of monkfish. Monkfish liver is almost like, for the harvestable meat, if you're including that, is like about 75% of it. For ankimo, I've definitely learned the more traditional way, which would be like to steam and torchon the ankimo. The one that we're doing is going to be more of a slow braise or poach, and we do like a soy-based poach on that. I did have like one of the best ones in my life down in Los Angeles and tried to recreate it, and this is about as close as we can get. Learned from a lot of Japanese guys, and they're not going to really tell you anything. They're just like, you have to figure it out for yourself. You can watch and figure it out.